Alexi asks, how much concrete does it take to contain a fish? I like to readjust my answer and say that there's not enough concrete in the world to contain a fish. Joey the cat asks, is this the question? I think it is. I might have to consult professionals, though, to figure that out. So truly some riveting messages I'm getting. What? Use a Discord? That's crazy and wild and weird. First message in this stream is Skibbity. Now, I think for the record, I would like to cite the fact that, that is the first message ever sent in one of my streams since summer, since June. Truly making history here. So when would the US President Avengers Endgame movie be releasing? Probably, you know, maybe Q2, Q3 of 2026. You know, because they're trying to wait and see who becomes president this time, so that way they can get, you know, the full cast, because you always want to have the younger superhero that just pops up. Because everyone likes that, you know, it's the same principle as Spider-Man. Everyone loves Spider-Man. Granted, if Trump wins, well, then there isn't going to be a character for that film, so it'll all be for nothing. Really leaving me out of that voice chat, huh? As if I'd want to be in there. I'm just talking nonsense. Will the next Shrek movie be releasing if Trump wins the presidency? I have no idea. And Greenstar has forgotten what he was gonna ask. What a shame. What a shame. I have no idea when I started yapping. Not gonna lie. When did you send that message, Joey? I have no idea. I'm pretty sure that's when I started talking. That. Okay, so I guess there just ain't timestamps on stream messages. I guess we'll just never know. In all seriousness, what president do you think will benefit rail travel more? I don't think any president is going to be that particularly beneficial for rail travel. I would say that Kamala Harris would probably likely be a bit more beneficial, simply because she's going to wind up inheriting all the pro-Amtrak policies that Biden had. Whereas the Republican Party is just historically not very pro-public transportation. I mean, if you want, like, a few nickels and pennies worth of billions of dollars every few years for Amtrak and whatnot, well, then probably Kamala Harris. Yeah. I know in my state, in Wisconsin, there was like a $3 billion grant that was handed out, and that's going to try and connect Milwaukee, which is the major city, to Madison, which is the actual capital, which is supposed to try and connect the actual capital city to the rest of the network. And then I think that might also be extending up to Minnesota, too. Ohio got pretty major grant as well, multiple for passenger rail connect to Columbus, thanks to the Biden administration. Yeah. Biden administration has handed out a lot of money to a lot of different places. There was the Infrastructure and Jobs Act, there was the Chips and Science Act, there was the Inflation Reduction Act. Those are the three main ones that I can think of. Pretty sure Greenstar, he saw actual shipments for Intel for the Chips and Science Act. that was pretty neat stuff to actually see it being shipped out there for the big mega factory that they've got planned out. That ought to provide a lot of jobs for that area. I think it was like up to 10,000. I don't think it was over 10,000. One of them was at the Rickenbacker airport, and there was schematics of the load on it. We'll be getting stormed the Capitol episode 2 if Kamala wins the presidency. We most definitely will. We will be getting a Storm the Capitol 2.0, or at least an attempted one. Something's gonna get stormed. I mean, we're already getting ballot drop boxes. Those are getting burned. And then voting areas are getting extreme right-wing support with like machetes and other weapons and trying to intimidate voters, and right-wing voters are getting like arrested and stuff for harassing and outright just assaulting poll workers and stuff like that. So yeah, I don't think a J6 2.0 is really that out of the question. It's more of a when rather than an if. Yeah, it's pretty disturbing, because one case that I heard of was literally just an old man working at the polling station, and I think it had to do with the voter not being allowed to like wear like pro-party memorabilia or clothing or anything like that. You're not supposed to do that at polling places. And the MAGA voter didn't like that, and so when he was told for a second time to take it off, the voter just straight up punched the shit out of the old man. I wonder if I can try and find an article for that. Old man poll worker assaulted. Yeah, that was in Texas, actually. Go to the Associated Press. Texas man punched an election worker who told him to remove Trump hat at voting site, police say. Yeah, they punched. It was a 69-year-old man in San Antonio. The suspect was arrested on felony charges of assaulting an elderly person and can face additional charges, Bexar County Sheriff Javier Salazar said. And this article is from the end of October, but as of the end of October, they were still remaining in jail. In the Bexar County Jail. That's pretty fucking serious to know of. I joined late, so what's your prediction? I haven't gotten into the prediction yet. Okay, so yeah, that's just talking about Joey is from Texas, so. Letter M, that's quite the name. But yeah, I haven't gotten into the prediction craft yet. I was looking up articles on election workers being harassed and assaulted and just straight up attacked by MAGA voters. And basically, yeah, if this is what those sorts of people are doing to election workers before the election is even done, you can only imagine that something like J6 is going to happen again. Because MAGA has only gotten more violent in the past 4 years. Yeah, I think I was interested in how the algorithm works. That is an excellent question. Because in the original video, I didn't really explain how it works at all. So, let me see here. I wonder if I can just show off the spreadsheet. That might be a bit too convoluted. I'll probably look at the spreadsheet and then I'll explain it. I have friends who are MAGA nuts. I actually had a thought they had gotten more violent in the past 4 years. Yeah. What's your thought, Joey? Okay, so while that's going... So basically, the way the algorithm works is that... Okay, so we can start from the baseline as basic as possible. There are 4 major polling average firms that I use. There is The Hill, which is more center-leaning. There is 538, which is, I believe, run by Nate Silver, and Nate Silver is, you know, questionable credibility, but it's relatively reliable. Real Clear Polling, which is a right-wing firm, and then 270 to Win, which, as far as I'm aware, is neutral. So it's 2 neutrals and 2 biased. So I take the averages from those polls, and what I do is that I have pretty much every state and every district that actually gets counted in elections. So all the 50 states, DC, the 4 main, so the 3 districts in Nebraska, and then Nebraska at large, and then the 2 districts in Maine and Maine at large. So I basically get that list of places that actually count in an election. I don't count places like Puerto Rico or whatever, even though they do vote. They don't actually have any electoral power. So what I do is that I'll just start with, let's just say Massachusetts. So last election, let's see here. Last election, actually we'll do Maryland. Last election, Maryland had 3 million votes. That's how many people voted in the Maryland election. And according to The Hill, the polling, last election, it was led by 23 points for the Democrats. According to The Hill, this election, it will be 27.9. According to 538, it'll be 28. According to Real Clear Polling, it'll be 29.2. And according to 270 to Win, it'll be 28.3. So that average is, let me remove the corrector. So that average is, I believe, the average is 28.4 based on the current polling, which is 100% Democrat safe. That's one of the safest states the Democrats have, which awards them 10 electoral votes. So 28.4 points lead. That is like 75% of the votes, somewhere around there, which means that the Democrats have 861,000 votes in lead, based on the amount of people who voted in the last election. So you get something like, you divide 3 million by 100, that tells you how many points are worth. And then you get the actual point lead. So I'll even break it down even more. So you get the 3 million, break it down to 100, into a unit of 100. So that tells you that 1 point in Maryland is worth 132,000 votes. So 132,000 votes is 1 point. If Harris is leading by 28.4 points, that means she is leading by 861,000 votes. Does that make sense so far? I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but that's how it would work for Maryland. Given that I think that makes sense. That's how that works. So you apply that to every single state based on the amount of people who voted in the last election. And based on all the averages, so I'll go through the averages for pretty much every state that matters. I won't be going over the safe states, or the safe and likely states that aren't possible for anyone to, I will leave out the states that are literally impossible to flip. So Missouri is 12 points Trump, South Carolina 11.6 points Trump, Kansas 11.6, Alaska 10.3, Texas 7.5, Florida 7.1, Ohio 7.1, Nebraska 1.6, Maine 2 is 4, Arizona is 2.4, Iowa is 2.4, Georgia is 1.8, North Carolina is 1.4, Nevada is 1.1, and Pennsylvania is 0.3. Those are all in Trump's camp. And then in Harris's camp, we have 0.4 for Wisconsin, 0.8 for Michigan, 4.1 for New Hampshire, 5.3 for Minnesota, 6.5 for New Mexico, 6.5 for Virginia, 9.7 for Oregon, and Nebraska District 2 is 10.7. So when you run all of those numbers and you get the point lead for each of those states, you get Harris leading with 4.3 million votes. Now, the thesis, this is where we reach the thesis of the algorithm, the entire linchpin of how it works. Excuse me. So, basically, in the last election, 160.2 million people voted, which is, I believe, about 45% of the population. Whether you believe that that many people voted or not is frankly irrelevant. It doesn't change the math. So 160.2 million people voted. Now, if you divide that into 100-point blocks, that means that a single point is worth 1.6 million votes. Now, we can go to The Hill. The Hill has Harris 0.2 points behind Trump nationally. 538 is 1 point ahead of Trump. Real Clear Polling is negative 0.2. 270 to win is 1 point. So the average that all the major polling averages are putting out is they are saying that Harris is 0.4 points ahead of Donald Trump. There's a problem with that, though. We know that 1 point equals 1.6 million votes. We know that Harris is likely 4.3 million votes ahead. It is not possible for Harris to be leading by 0.4 points. That is too small. The only way for Harris to be leading by 0.4 points is if there are over 1 billion voters in the United States. Harris, based on the polls from all the states, is leading by 4.3 million votes. What does 4.3 million votes equal to? It equals 2.7 points ahead of Trump. Now, we already know that the polls have been flooded by right-wing pollsters, just putting their thumb on the scale. There have been Twitter accounts simply saying, "You're welcome for us getting you the polling numbers that you wanted." Unfortunately, that is not how polling works. You cannot choose what the outcome is. So how much is the polling off by? Well, going off of the fact that Harris is leading allegedly by 4.3 million votes, or 2.7 points, and not 0.4 points, we know then that the polls are underestimating her by 2.3 points. So how do we rectify this? Basically, you just add 2.3 points to every single state poll. You do that, you fix the discrepancy. And before I do that, I am just going to go over basically the polling maps now, so no more thumbnail. Let me move my algorithm over so that way it's not in the way. So we can just transition then. Okay. Yeah, okay, so it's showing. What we see here is the 270 to win 2024 consensus map. Pretty much unchanged since the election cycle started off. This thing isn't very accurate whatsoever, but it gives a good frame of reference for what the swing states are, shall we say. So this, what I'm going to switch to now, is the current polling map based on yesterday's polls. Based on the current polling, Harris loses the election, but I've laid out the groundwork for how the algorithm works. We know that this map is wrong. It is underselling Harris's performance. So what is the adjusted map? What does that look like? Well, first off, all of the well, actually, pretty much these states are the ones that aren't really affected all that much. These states will not flip whatsoever. These are the actually safe states. No matter who gets a 5-point boost from the margin of error, these states aren't moving. So now that we have that down, now that we know that the polling map is wrong, what does the polling map actually look like? It looks more like this. Pretty much all of the swing states, except for Arizona, are in Harris's camp. by a fair margin. Georgia and North Carolina are very, very slimly held, and the Rust Belt is held solidly by Kamala Harris. And then, of course, Nevada stays with Kamala Harris. This is not my election prediction. I do not think that the electoral map will look like this. As written down on my little note here, this is only 8.20%, 8.2% of all election outcomes. And along with this not being the most likely option, pretty much all of the so-called, slim victories, like if Harris wins 270 or like 269 or 276, those aren't going to happen, in my opinion. 270, that has a 9.4% chance of happening. 276 is 3.9% chance of happening. It is incredibly unlikely. The most likely outcomes are that Harris wins 325 electoral votes, 326 electoral votes, or loses with 226 electoral votes. So, this is Harris's most likely case. She just wins all of the swing states: Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia, Arizona, Nevada, and picks up Iowa. Here, Trump's most likely case of victory is this map. Basically does the exact same thing. Gets all the swing states: Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia, Arizona, Nevada. Keeps Iowa. Pretty much the most likely scenarios are a miniature landslide for either candidate. And I firmly stand by that. I don't think that the electoral map will look like, say, let me just go back to the safe states map. Well, not that one. Let's just go to the consensus map. I don't think it's going to look like this, for example. It's not going to look like that. It's not going to look like, say, this. I mean, this map right here is even less likely, just because the Sun Belt is more conservative, than the Rust Belt. That's just a fact of the matter. More southerly states are more conservative by nature, and then even Arizona's case, immigration is more of a significant issue for the electorate down there, so this is just not likely to happen. It's even less likely than if Harris wins the Rust Belt and then loses the Sun Belt. Ultimately, these outcomes just aren't going to happen, in my opinion. It's going to be this or this. The swing... Well, not that. No, not that. It's going to be this. The swing states are going to get swept, and then Iowa is going to either flip Harris or stay Trump. Iowa might be a good state to look at on election night to see how it's going to go. If Iowa goes to Harris's camp, it's an election blowout. I believe that if Iowa goes for Harris, Harris is going to win. Now, if she doesn't get Iowa, does that mean she's going to lose? No. Iowa is just a good, immediate test to see if Harris might have a blowout. It's not going to determine who wins the election. Pennsylvania is more likely going to be the state that decides, who's actually going to win completely. This is pretty neutral in views too, isn't it, Wrath? I'm trying to present all arguments. I am an incredibly biased person, but the algorithm itself is based on polling that is done by other people. The information itself is not biased. So yeah, I don't think that there's going to be a slim election. Now, one critical flaw in my algorithm is that it doesn't account for more people voting in this election than in the previous election. I will point that out in full earnest. That is a flaw. However, my counter to that is simply, in order for Harris to be leading by 0.4 points, there have to be 1 billion voters, which is more people than are in the country of the United States. the polls might be, my prediction might be off by like, a point maybe. But it's not going to be off by 5 points. 5 points would be what it takes for Trump to actually win. Well, not 5 points. He needs something more like 3 points to win, to get the majority vote. Trump needs to just make sure that Harris doesn't get more than like 2.5 points in support, then he wins. My point is that these predictions in and of themselves are as accurate as they could possibly be. And this is also taking into account the margin of error. And following the margin of error, I can show you the best case for each candidate. If Trump gets a full 5-point margin of error in 0.02% of all outcomes, this is what the election map would look like. It would be not only a... Well, actually, I should probably check before I make that claim. So I can do this adjustment. -5. Actually, no. It wouldn't be a landslide in any sense of the word. It would just simply be an incredibly... Actually, I put in the wrong number. Call me a dumbass real quick. Because, yeah, that does seem like it would be a... Huh, I guess even then it wouldn't be a landslide. Yeah, it wouldn't be a landslide, but this is what the map would look like. Trump would pretty much win all the swing states. He would seize Virginia. He would seize New Mexico. Iowa would stay safe. Minnesota would be taken. And even New Hampshire would be taken. Is this going to happen? No. It's not going to happen. The chances of this happening are only 0.2%. 0.02%, actually, even a tenth of that. And that the same goes for Harris's best case, too. Harris's best case is 8 times more likely than Trump's, but it's still 0.16% chance of happening. She gets Texas, she gets Florida, she gets Iowa. Ohio, not Iowa. Well, she does get Iowa. Picks up all the swing states, even breaches into Nebraska 1. They have a really weird system for how this works. You'd think it'd be 1, 2, 3, but it's actually 3, 2, 1. So yeah, this is what it would look like if Harris got the 5-point, well, not the 5-point, it wouldn't be the 5-point boost, it would actually be it would be a 5-point boost nationally. Yeah, this would be an election blowout. This would be a landslide. She would win electorally landslide, and she would win 20.8 million votes. Yeah, even Joey says, knowing the culture in Texas, it's not likely going to turn blue. I can give you Texas's odds based on the current polling map. The most likely outcome for Texas is that it has a... Most likely, based on this map, not the current polling. The most likely election outcome is Harris getting the 325, by the way. So it gets this. Let me adjust. Yeah, it is literally sub 0.00% for Texas. Texas is not likely going to flip, unfortunately. I hate to say it. It's just not. And I couldn't in good conscience really advertise the idea of Texas flipping. I mean, simply because for the past 20 years, it's been promised or postulated that, oh, Texas is going to flip this year, they're going to flip this year, they're going to flip this year. And they just haven't. It is true that Texas is becoming increasingly more liberal. There are currently more registered Democrats in Texas than there are registered Republicans. How long could it take for a state like Texas to ever flip? Actually, I could probably tell you. In the last election, Trump won Texas by 0.6 points. 2016 presidential election. 0.6 points is barely, quote-unquote, safe. Which really flies in the face of the whole idea of Texas, being the big red state. But ultimately, Texas has not been the big red state, as people know it, since literally before Bush v. Gore, since the 2000 election. The whole idea of Texas being the big red state has been a complete propaganda lie. For 2016, let me see here. Texas, okay. Yeah. In 2016, Trump won Texas by 9 points. In 3 years, he lost 33% of his support in Texas, which means that based on the current trend of 9, 6 and 20, 9 in 2016, 6 and 20, this year it would potentially be like 3 points, which means that by 2028, Texas would be a toss-up state. 2028 is potentially a little soon, but I could almost guarantee, as much as I can guarantee, which isn't very much, I could probably guarantee that Texas is a toss-up state by 2028 or 2032. Whereas, something like, but it should be considered that since Biden became president, Californians have been losing to Texas. Yeah, it's true. A lot of people from liberal states have been moving to Texas, which, some people might say, oh, they're coming to rig the election, blah, 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 blah. That doesn't change the fact that it's becoming more liberal. It's not that Californians are coming to Texas and voting in Texas. It's that Californians are moving to Texas, becoming Texans, and then voting as Texans. It's the same reason why New York, for example, is becoming more conservative. New York is hemorrhaging liberal voters, and those who are being left behind are conservatives. That's just how electoral dynamics work. And then I know Green Star's going to be curious about Ohio, because that's where he's from. Ohio, in 2016, Trump won it by 8.1 points. In 2020, Trump won it by 8 points. So a 0.1 shift in one election cycle. I'm not really going to do the math in my head, but as you can imagine, it would literally take centuries at this rate for Ohio to actually flip. And then for Florida is one of the few that are just going up in conservative values, I'm pretty sure. Because Florida used to be one of the old guard swing states, along with Iowa and Kentucky. So Trump won Florida in 2016 by 1.2, which is insane to think about. And he doubled that support in 2020. It was up to 3 points. So it's just getting more and more conservative. So I don't think that long-term Florida is on the table. I mean, there is, the lightning in a bottle chance that Harris wins Florida. I don't think it's likely. But if the Democratic Party can't, wrestle back control of Florida, did I say Republican? If the Democratic Party can't wrestle back control of Florida within this election cycle, Florida's going to be gone. Florida's just going to be as unreachable to the Democrats as New York and California and Washington and Illinois are to the GOP. So I think it's just going to go full off onto the deep end into the completely safe states. Yeah, this is the most likely scenario. So, all in all, I'm not going to guarantee anything, because any election prediction that guarantees anything is probably absolutely insane. I think one of the people I know who would whine about it being rigged if Harris did someone. Yeah, regardless of how much Harris wins by, if she wins by 1 vote, if she wins by 1 electoral vote, or if she wins by 100, Trump is going to declare that the election was rigged. It doesn't matter. You cannot conceive of a reality where he doesn't say it was rigged. Trump is already saying that Pennsylvania is rigged before the votes even get cast. Even though Pennsylvania is currently not looking too good for him. Let me see. Early voting results. Pennsylvania. Yeah, this isn't completely accurate to what the votes are going to turn out as, mind you, because, you know, people still have to show up to the ballot boxes on election day. But in terms of early votes, 56% of all early votes have been Democrat. 33% have been Republican. Now, assuming that we're just going to take independents out of the equation because we're going to assume that it's a 50-50 split for independents, even though we know that's not true. Independents are breaking for Harris more. So, assuming that, you know, it's just the 56 v 33, Harris is leading the Republicans, leading Trump by 23 points in early voting. Now, is it going to be 23 points leading on election night? Is that going to be the result? No, no, no. Get that out of your head before it even takes a root. That is not how it's going to happen. Even by my own algorithm, Harris is only likely going to win Pennsylvania by 2.1 points. She has a 71% chance of winning Pennsylvania. But yeah, Pennsylvania, it is largely in Harris's camp right now. Much of the electorate in Pennsylvania is Puerto Ricans, and there's a whole scandal right now. There's a whole October surprise going on right now of Trump at that rally. He had a comedian there who said that Puerto Rico is a floating pile of garbage that pissed off Puerto Ricans across the entire country. Pennsylvania is not looking good right now, and take it from the man's mouth himself. He believes that already Pennsylvania is being rigged. He's not saying that, oh, North Carolina is rigged. Not Georgia's rigged, Michigan, Wisconsin. He is singling out Pennsylvania. Now, if you're Trump and you're wanting to win the election at any cost, why would you single out Pennsylvania as being rigged unless you believed that it was your weakest, most vulnerable, and important point? See where I'm getting at here? From the man's mouth himself, I am not instilled with confidence that he can win Pennsylvania. I am not instilled with confidence that even he thinks he can win Pennsylvania, at least not legitimately. Of course, he's going to say the entire election was rigged, regardless. But the fact that he's focusing his efforts on saying that Pennsylvania was rigged, it doesn't fill me with confidence in terms of saying Trump's going to win Pennsylvania. And Harris has 71.16% chance of winning Pennsylvania, as the algorithm dictates. Pennsylvania is likely going to be in Harris's camp. And if Pennsylvania goes to Harris's camp, the entire Rust Belt is likely to go in Harris's camp. They've historically voted together for a long time. I can't really name off the top of my head the last time there was a break in the Rust Belt, but I think it was 20 plus years ago. So if Pennsylvania goes to Harris, the entire Rust Belt goes to Harris. And if the entire Rust Belt goes to Harris, you can take away all these other swing states. She still wins with 276. Pennsylvania is really, if you want to know if Harris is going to win early on election night, Pennsylvania is going to be the state to look at. You're going to want to look at Pennsylvania to see whether or not she's going to win. Harris, most likely case. And then if you want to know if Harris is going to win a blowout, I recommend that you watch Iowa. So, victory in general, Pennsylvania, blowout victory, Iowa. That is my prediction for you there. Imagine if he was claiming his state was rigged and the results were in his favor in the end. Yeah. Yeah, that would be quite something. But I mean, we're talking about a man who said that if Jesus was counting the votes, he would have won California in like 2020. So Trump's capacity to understand the electorate is low, shall we say. I mean, the whole idea of Trump winning California is about as likely as Harris winning Wyoming. If we're going to be completely honest. Yep, Trump did admit that he likes uneducated people. He loves the uneducated. Because, yeah, California, Harris is going to win California by 26.2. The equivalent of that for the Republicans is if Harris won Kentucky. The Republicans winning California is as likely as Harris winning Kentucky. So you can understand that it's pretty fucking unlikely. It's not gonna happen. I mean, the whole idea of Harris winning the GOP Triangle of Texas, Ohio, and Florida, that alone is already, you know, unlikely. It's lightning is in a bottle, so. My mouse is powering off when I don't use it. That's weird. So yeah, I'm going out to vote for Harris tomorrow. Yep. Whatever it takes, gotta get out to vote, even in Ohio. It doesn't matter if you're in a safe state or a lean state or whatever have you. You gotta send... You gotta make your voice known. You have to send a message. And I mean, who knows? You know, there is still that 0.16% that Harris wins Ohio. If you want that outcome to be the reality, you have to go out there and vote. You have to be one of those people who goes out there to vote, even if you feel like it's very unlikely. I mean, Texas is only being held on to right now by the GOP because the Democrats in Texas don't get out to vote. They don't get out to vote in high enough numbers. In railroading terms, it'd basically be a steam extrusion and have a heritage unit pass by with a whistle tag. Yeah, I want to pretend to know what that means. Yeah, it's incredibly unlikely. And speaking of early voting results, as it currently stands, Harris, for mail-in ballots, Harris is leading 44-30, and for actually cast ballots, which are being counted, it's 41-39. So it's 3 points. Of course, that's not how it's going to turn out on election night, because, you know, there's independent voters who aren't registered voters, or they are registered voters, but they aren't registered with the party. And then there is the fact that, you know, not everyone votes early. But Harris leads women by 20 points, and Trump leads men by like 5 points, or something like that. And women are leading in voting 53-44. 53% women, 44% men, 3% unknown. The map I'm currently presenting is the most likely outcome. Most likely outcome is that all the swing states are won, and Iowa's picked up. If they did not participate, then they shouldn't be complaining. They did not care enough to vote. That is so bleeding accurate. If you want your voice heard, you must speak. You cannot expect your voice to be heard without speaking. If you don't like a president, you should have voted against them. The only excuse you have is if you weren't old enough to vote for him at the time. If you want a certain outcome, you must vote. Otherwise, you're just an asshat on your couch complaining about blah, 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 this, that, and the other. If you are too lazy to get off your ass and go to the nearest voting place, then you shouldn't have the right to complain about how things turn out. Well, there's also recently released felons. What are we talking about here? For voting. Yeah, for felons, voting entirely depends on the state. I think felons can vote in Florida, because that's where Trump is from, and I think he's allowed to vote. States where felons can vote. And then it also just depends on the crime. Yeah, for Florida, it depends on the crime. You may lose your vote permanently. In most states, it's voting restored after you leave prison, parole, and probation. And then for most states by population, not number of states, it is just vote restored after you leave prison. And then in 2 states, Maine and Vermont, you may vote from prison. Oh, and DC, but DC's not a state. So it really just depends on the state. In Texas, this is based on Britannica what is this? Procon? I'm assuming Procon means pro-conservative. I can't see. I'm pretty sure it's Procon. Yeah, just based on the comments, it's Procon. Yeah, based on Procon, I'm not sure when this chart was released, but based on Procon, Texas is your vote is restored after prison, parole, and probation. Conservative states tend to be more strict on felons voting, whereas more liberal states let felons vote without as many restrictions. Which, I mean, we shouldn't be that surprised about. These logistics are always fascinating to me. Yeah. The more you understand about how a system works, the less pissed off you'll get when something unexpected happens, because it won't be unexpected. I feel like a lot of discontent with how the government works in modern-day society is the fact that people just don't understand how the government works. I guess I could potentially save this image and then show it on streams. That way people can actually, see, since that was a subject that was brought up. Image. Let's add an image. Oops, wrong source. Add an image. Image 4. Grab this. And transition. There we go. That's the state felon voting laws and policies based on state. So yeah, it really just depends on the state. But Trump is a felon, and he was allowed to vote in the primaries, I'm pretty sure, and then also for an amendment. Yeah. Let me see. Yeah. I never actually listed off. I don't think I ever listed off my actual numerical prediction. Harris's chance of winning the Electoral College is between 76.5 and 78.6%. And her chance of winning the popular vote is between 78.9% and 100%. So, my ultimate prediction, if I'm going to have to, stop beating around the bush and just say who I think is going to win, I think Harris is going to win the election by a fairly stable margin. Like I said, a slim victory I don't think is really going to happen. I think it's going to be a minor landslide for Harris. That is my prediction. And then I guess, just for completion's sake, I suppose I could list out the likelihoods for each electoral vote count. Evelyn Lockwood message retracted? That didn't last very long. Okay, so let me see here. I gotta add a new image to the presentation. Image 5. Look at my screenshots here. Screenshots all the way down. Yeah, this is mainly just to cover my ass because I don't think that Harris has a 75% chance of winning, this map that I'm currently presenting. I just think she has a 75% chance or whatever of actually winning it in total. There are many outcomes for her to actually win this election. Transition. There is like a live concert going on where I am. Personally, I think Kat would be president. Her candidates. Oh dear. Yeah, I think that retracted message, based on a message I'm getting, I think that retracted message is Trump gonna win by 271. What are the chances of Trump winning by 271? Let me see if that's even an option, because it might not be. 538 minus... Well, that's the wrong way around. Wait, no, never mind, it isn't. So I have all my electoral points counted in favor of Harris, not in favor of Trump, so that means I have to, do 538 minus the amount Harris gets. No, Trump winning by 271 electoral votes is not possible, just because of the... Oh, 287? There's a 6% chance that Trump wins by 287. Yeah, there's a 6% chance that Trump wins with 287 electoral votes. But there is no chance of him winning 271 votes, because the states are all just the wrong numbers. So the puzzle pieces just simply don't fit together. Oh yeah, I don't know why I'm reading this off. I have it presented on the screen now. You can see that. I guess it doesn't have the mathed out version. Those numbers are just based on how many Harris wins. Yeah, the scenario where she wins by 251 electoral votes is where Trump gets 287. But yeah, even if Harris wins on election night, it's gonna be very scary next 2 months, because, like we said, MAGA has only gotten more violent over the past 4 years. And MAGA is a faction of the conservative wing of America that does not believe in any outcome that isn't them winning. And in 2020, MAGA already tried to overturn the election through both legal games and through just sieging the Capitol building. Imagine what they're going to try to do this time around. They're assaulting poll workers, they're burning ballots, they're attacking people. What happens when that sect of the American public, for a second time, gets told, no, you don't win by democratic means? They're going to be completely radicalized. They are going to become more right-wing, and they're going to believe, ultimately, that, yeah, democracy doesn't work. Their political views are going to become ultimately antithetical to the American system of governance. And that is a very, very scary thought. Because 22% of Americans voted for Trump in 2020. Let's just say that, half of them are MAGA. And now let's just say that only half of them go apeshit. That's 2.2% of the American public. That might not seem like much, until you consider the fact that we have 345 million people in this country. And when you realize that 2.2% of the American public is 7,600,000 people. Imagine how much damage 7.6 million people can do if they go absolutely insane. Didn't Trump himself already promise to be a dictator on day one? Yes, he did. He promised to be a dictator on day one. He has tweeted out on Truth Social that he will terminate the Constitution if necessary. He is more than willing to weaponize the Department of Justice against his enemies. Yeah, that is completely correct, Greenstar. A single person can be dangerous if they are skilled enough and they feel they have nothing left to lose. Now just multiply that 7.6 million times. Let's just, just 7.6 million. Imagine if only 1% of those people are actually, legitimately super dangerous and could actually pose a threat to society. That's still 76,000 people planted all across the country. who might be compelled to just partake in terrorist activities. No idea if I'm getting this correct, but wouldn't Trump taking over trigger the shit described in the Rebels Dilemma? Yeah, I don't know what the Rebels Dilemma is. What is the Rebels Dilemma? Yeah, that's a whole ass book. Can I just get the rundown? Oh yeah. The dilemma is if dissidents are unable to band together and press the state for a redress of grievances, social order results. However, if dissidents can overcome the rebels' dilemma and mobilize as a collectivity, social disorder ensues. Yeah. That's I don't know how that factors into Trump winning the election, but yeah, rebellion against the state can only happen if the masses can collectivize. If they can organize. If the masses can't organize, then rebellion will fail. And that's part of the reason why governments and corporations want us divided as much as humanly possible. Because if people are divided and at each other's throats, they're less likely to rebel against the state. Excuse me. And against the current elite and the powers that be. But yeah, we're not... even if Harris wins the election night, or even, the night after election night, because, counting votes can take a little while. Even if she wins the night, there's still 2 months to go until she's sworn into office. Yes, I agree. The government won't want us divided, including the media. Yeah. The government does want us divided. Now imagine if people had the type of knowledge and talents I did, but decided to do it IRL. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, even if 1% of 1% of all Trump voters actually did something crazy, that would be that would be almost 8,000 people. And if it was just, 1%, then it would be 776,000 people. Yeah, I don't think Trump is going to win by 287. Trump's most likely chance of victory is winning with 312 electoral votes. If he wins, I believe it will be with 312 electoral votes. He will sweep the swing states. So, Trump winning by 287 is just statistically not likely. I can actually do the math for how many of Trump's outcomes will result in the 312 equals if larger than 269, then account for percent, otherwise blank. So that's this. Sum. Yeah, 56% of all of Trump's victory outcomes end with 312 electoral votes. There is simply no reality where he gets 287, because that would be only 24.5% of his outcomes. Also, did I just break something in my algorithm? I better not have. I'd be so fucking pissed if I just broke it again. Oh, never mind. It's just because I added an extra column and I'm not supposed to do that. So I can just Control-Z that. There you go. Trump's most likely. Yeah, this is Trump's most likely map. This accounts for 56% of all of his odds. He gets all the swing states, just all the swing states, and that pushes him to 312. Yeah. If Trump wins Pennsylvania and Michigan, he's gonna win Wisconsin too. I don't think Wisconsin's gonna break for Harris if Trump wins all the other swing states. It's just not that likely, especially when I'm pretty sure that Wisconsin isn't even the most left-leaning swing state at this point. Yeah, the most left-leaning one is Michigan. So if Michigan breaks for Trump, Wisconsin is most likely gonna fall too, because Harris leads Wisconsin by 2.8, and she leads Michigan by 3.2. So Wisconsin would have to at least boost its support for Harris by 0.5 points at minimum in order for Wisconsin to break for Harris while all the other swing states go for Trump. So it's just not likely. If Trump wins, it'll likely be with all the swing states. And then, of course, keeping Iowa. Yeah. But at the end of the day, Trump, in total, only has 24% chance of winning. And this is Harris's most likely outcome. I will be voting tomorrow, and look, I don't care who you're all voting for if you want a candidate to have a chance to vote. Yeah. Don't yap about who you want in office or wanted in office and then don't vote. That's some annoying bullshit right there. But yeah, circling back to my original statement. Look to Pennsylvania to see how the election is going to go. And then, if you want to know if Harris is going to win a blowout, look to Iowa. The fuck is that? I think I broke something in my algorithm. Again. It's just a fact that this is supposed to be in a different column. That's still not right. Why is it doing that? This is supposed to be some... Where the fuck is W at? Why it's not being listed? Oh, well, that's because it's supposed to be right there. Okay. So where was it supposed to go? If I had to say people need to have a clean background check to be president. Yeah, no shit, dude. That is like one of the most popular opinions in the country at this point. I don't understand what I did wrong here. Is this supposed to be Y? Supposed to be Y. Let's see. This is yeah. Yeah, okay. I found what was broke. It's fixed now. Don't you worry, anyone. Don't any regular government jobs require a background check, apparently, aside from the president? Yeah, pretty much most jobs in the government require extensive background checks. Like, you They need to know everything about you, especially if you're going to go to, like, anything, like, significant, like, anything to do with national security. They need to know everything about you. Like, I'm pretty sure, like, if you want to work for, like, the NSA or CIA or FBI or anything like that, any of the intelligence agencies, they gotta, like, if they ask you, hey, who's your fucking high school crush, you have to tell them. They want to know everything about you. But when it comes to president, you don't have to be anything. All you have to be is just rich enough. Just say that you're a part of the party of law and order, and they'll let you in. So why haven't we installed it for president yet? It was just the fact that in the beginning of the United States, it was pretty much assumed that we would never let that happen. It was literally just the fact that the founding fathers never imagined that the public would be so deteriorated in its standards. That's pretty much it. It was pretty much a gentleman's, like, rule of thumb. I mean, post-Hitler, though, why didn't we think it would become possible? I mean, even in 1940s America, it was no one ever imagined that a criminal would be running for president. Who's your high school crush? Me, Yeah, like, the founding fathers just simply never imagined that the public would be voting for criminal. And I mean, granted, before the summer, it was theoretically possible for states to just retract a president from being on the ballot if they did, illegal stuff. The states could do that. But then the Supreme Court stepped in and said, no, you can't do that. Only Congress can do that. Yeah, it was possible for states to do that until the Supreme Court, which was all appointed by Trump, said, no, you can't do that. Yeah, Trump isn't in the situation where he's being prosecuted by his political opponent or anything like that. Trump is being prosecuted by various separate states, some of which are right-wing states. And then there is also some that are being prosecuted by the Department of Justice, which, mind you, is not under the direct president's control. The whole idea of Trump being prosecuted by the deep state or the liberal propaganda and the liberal, just all that, is a lie. That assumption of how this is going on is made under the pretense of not understanding how the government actually works. Oh, I'm very familiar too. And the fact that I'm so familiar is why I am not voting for Trump. He has surrounded himself with sycophants. He has promised to tear apart the entire government and replace it with loyalists. And he has promised to politically prosecute every single last one of his enemies, and has appointed a Supreme Court that says that any action that Trump does is completely immune from prosecution. Trump's rhetoric is completely Hitlerian in nature. Yeah, I mean, Trump's Supreme Court, they literally decided over the summer, any official act carried out by the President of the United States is immune from prosecution unless he is impeached and convicted by both the House and the Senate, which is politically impossible. Trump can, legally, order an execution on any of his political rivals, and there's nothing that can be done about it. Yeah, I don't think that the Rust Belt is going to break. The most likely scenarios for both candidates is that they stay solid, they stay together. It doesn't matter if Supreme Court justices still need to be approved by Congress. The Supreme Court is still going to be there. The Supreme Court, the 6-3 split on the Supreme Court has been there since Trump put it there. And the justices that are on the court will stay there until they choose to retire. That is why Roe v. Wade was overturned under the Biden administration. That is why the president has been given supreme powers under the Biden administration. It's all in preparation to protect Trump from prosecution, and it is all in preparation of enabling Trump to take complete control of the executive branch. And, I mean, if Trump is immune from prosecution in pretty much every single scenario, what stops him from just imprisoning every single one of his political opponents? What stops him from just arresting every single Democrat in Congress? Then he can get anything he wants. Pass any amendment to the Constitution, pass any law, no opposition. No one's going to prosecute him because he can't be impeached, because it'll all be Republicans in Congress. And the Republicans aren't going to impeach Trump. They had their chance back in 2020, and they chose not to. Yeah, I mean, Mr. Thalin, it's not impossible, of course. It is possible that the Rust Belt will split. It's just that it's less likely to split, is all I'm saying. The major outcomes for the majority of the outcomes for the election have the Rust Belt be voting together, as they have been for a very long time now. Of course, I'm not guaranteeing anything. All I'm saying is that this right here is the most likely map, and that's that. And that Harris is likely going to win. She has a 75% chance of winning. Yeah, the Rust Belt has historically voted together for a long-ass time. How long has the Rust Belt voted together? Actually, I probably just electoral maps, historic. Excuse me. And then I can just look at that. Okay, so they voted together in 2020, 2016, 2020, 2012, 2008, 2004, 2000, 1996, 1992. Yeah, the last time they broke was in 1988. So that was 36 years ago. They've been voting together for 36 years. Because Roe v. Wade hadn't been overturned at the time. Roe v. Wade wasn't overturned at the time, and it was a judicial precedent. There was no reason to put it into law. It's the same reason why, something like segregation wasn't outright made illegal by law. It was made illegal by the Supreme Court. It was declared unconstitutional. And then by the time Roe v. Wade was overturned, it was basically too late in the Congress to actually pass it into law. Because Roe v. Wade was overturned in the summer of 2022, I believe. Once you reach the end of summer 2022, you can't really be passing laws like that anymore. During the end of a congressional term, you need to start towards the end of the year, really, you need to start passing bills about, like, funding projects. You need to start passing stopgaps. You need to start doing things related to the wallet. And you need to start doing specific stuff that when you go back home, you're going to be able to say, look at what I did. And then there's also the fact that even if you have both chambers of Congress, that doesn't mean you can pass a law, because the filibuster exists. If the Republicans really want us to block something in the Senate, even if they have a minority, they can literally talk a bill to death. You can sit there and talk for as long and as slow as you possibly want, and you could just talk until people give up. Have any predictions for the House and Senate? Sorry if you already brought that up. I came in the stream like 3 minutes ago. Oh, that's perfectly fine if I have to repeat stuff. That is perfectly okay. I don't really have predictions for the House and Senate because my algorithm is not built for that. For the House, I mean, if Harris wins this map that you see here, I think she'll win the House easy because she will just win the popular vote by that much. For the Senate, I think the Republicans have the edge for the Senate. I think the Republicans might win the Senate, which means that a lot of what Harris wants to do is going to wind up being stopped in the Senate. But if there is any scenario where Harris does win the Senate, it'll be through flipping Texas. Yeah, I could... Yeah, I'm pretty sure all the states are set in their place. The only two states that are a toss-up are Ohio and Texas. Ohio is probably going to keep Sherrod Brown, who is the Democratic senator from Ohio. Because even though Ohio has voted Republican for a very, very, very long time, they still have Sherrod Brown. Sherrod Brown has been serving for, like, over 10 years now. And then Ted Cruz is just chronically unpopular. Yeah, for the Senate race, I think Texas can flip. For the presidential race, I don't think Texas is going to flip. Texas flipping is like 0.16%. It's possible. It's just not likely going to happen. Yeah, because Cruz, they do not like Cruz in Texas. Especially because of him fleeing during the storms and shit, trying to go down to Mexico. Meanwhile, you had, like, the representatives from, like, Democratic representatives and senators from New York and California and shit. They were coming down there and helping Texas. Meanwhile, Cruz, their senator, was fucking fleeing off to Mexico. I'm not even in Texas, and that shit fucking pisses me off. Fucking coward. That lard of a man, hardly a man at all. He hid during... He talks about, January 6th was a peaceful day of love. There's no reason to prosecute the people. Ted Cruz was hiding in a fucking broom closet. Trump is up 7 points in Ohio. He can get a senator elected on down ballot. Yeah, that is true. Ohio is a toss-up. It's a 50-50. But as far as Ohio being 7 points, I don't think Ohio is 7 points. Yeah, Ohio is 4.6 points for Trump. Not 7. 4.6 is still a lot. Don't get me wrong. He's just not up 7 points. Simply because of the adjusted polling and how much we know that the polls are off. Yeah, Trump will probably take Texas, but by a smaller margin than 2020. Yeah, he likely will. He will likely win Texas by like 3 points. That is the most likely outcome, I believe. I could probably actually tell the precise amount here. Texas. Yeah, he will win Texas by 3 to 5 points. Yeah, that is true, but you need more than just the 2 points to kick Sherrod Brown off the ballot, because let me see. Sherrod Brown. Yeah, he's been the senator for Ohio since let me see here. Senator of Ohio. Yeah, he's been a senator of Ohio since 2007. And Ohio has been, you know, many, many, many points in Trump's favor for a long time. Like, I don't think that even if Trump won... Let me see how much Trump won Ohio by, because he won Ohio by a lot. Last election, he won Ohio by 8 points, and Sherrod Brown was still elected. And then let me see how it turned out in 2016. Yeah, he won by 8 points in 2016 too, and Sherrod Brown was still elected. Ohioans vote for Trump by 8 points, yet still elect Sherrod Brown. So in that, the Trump's lead in Ohio is only getting smaller. Like, if they wanted to flip Sherrod Brown out of Ohio, I mean, I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying that the odds are against Trump on flipping Ohio senatorially. Because, like I said, Ohioans are voting 8 points plus for the past, 2 cycles for Trump, but are voting for a Democratic senator, at least one Democratic senator, because they would have, of course, the one Republican senator. So they're voting split ticket. So I just don't think that it's really likely to change. Of course, I'm not going to pretend to be a prophet. I'm not going to say it's impossible. I'm just saying that the odds are heavily stacked against Trump when it comes to flipping Ohio. And besides, it's not even like they have to try that hard, because all they need is, I'm pretty sure all they need to do is hold Texas. They just need to hold Ted Cruz, and that's 51-49. So even if Harris wins, they'll still hold the Senate if they keep Texas. They don't need to play aggressive, and the Republican Party has less money to work with. I mean, state Republican parties across the entire country are going bankrupt right now. So playing it aggressively and trying to flip Brown might not be a good idea, because trying to flip Brown, wasting hundreds of millions of dollars trying to flip Brown, get him out of office, to flip Ohio. What if that doesn't work? And all that money that you spent trying to flip Brown, which was for nothing, that money could have gone to Cruz, but because Cruz didn't get it, he now suddenly loses the election. So now, by trying to play aggressive and trying to play for 2 votes, you lost 2. You couldn't even keep the one that you already had. Yeah, I think Brown has an edge in Ohio, electoral history and opinion polling points at it. Yeah, I agree, Eddie. But yeah, isn't DeWine a decent person for the Republican Party? Yeah, I think DeWine is a pretty good Republican. Like MT flipping a Democratic seat in West Virginia. Yeah, DeWine, he's okay. He is one of the few sane Republicans left, in my opinion. If it comes down to voting between DeWine or a challenger Republican, I would vote for DeWine easily. Granted, I mean, a lot of Republicans call him a rhino, but I don't care. Yeah, McCain was pretty good too. McCain was someone who wasn't afraid of voting for what was right over what his party wanted. Yeah, I don't really. I'm not gonna get into a debate over what a rhino is. People aren't a Republican in name only just because they don't agree with Messiah Trump. Because, like, McCain believed in abortion being wrong. He was pro-life through and through. He was against birth control being funded federally. He was opposed to gay marriage for a long time. Let me see here. He wanted to be tough on crime. Let me see here. Let me see. He was probably really, yeah, he was part of the NRA. Yeah, there's no way you can argue that McCain was a rhino, because he believed in so many conservative policies. It's just that he wasn't willing to blindly follow the Republican Party, and it's just that he didn't want to bend the knee to Trump, because Trump's a fucking worthless flesh bag of a human being. McCain was still an ultimately very conservative man. And I mean, the whole idea of, oh, you're not a real Republican if you don't like Trump, well, that's just full on MAGA right there. Yeah, Mitch McConnell being done this term is great. He needs to go. He's too old. He's a spineless coward, and his brain is melting. McCain believed in values, but not forcing them on others. Or I met him once when I was younger. Yeah, that is cool. I've never met a single politician in my life. Is Joey still messaging in chat? Because I don't think I see him. I'm not sure. Yeah. I wholeheartedly disagree that McCain was a rhino. Damn, I'm getting hungry. I have something to fill in the silence. Oh, people in Vermont love him because he's not a shill for the political elite. He's not a Democrat, not a Republican. Probably look up his approval rating right now, actually. Bernie Sanders approval rating. Popularity. Okay, well, this doesn't tell me how much he's liked in Vermont. But yeah, he is... Yeah, Bernie Sanders is net 24 points across the entire country. He is incredibly popular. Yeah, he's literally the most popular senator in the entire country. It's crazy how Sanders was once considered a radical, and now he's pretty accepted in the party. But yeah, according to YouGov, which is about as good of a pollster as you can get, he is only disliked by 25% of Americans. Here, I'm also one of the Republican Party's. Let's do the same. I don't know how much I agree with that idea. Green Star and I actually did an exercise to see what the average age is for people in the House and Senate, and the average age is pretty much about the same. Both parties are completely infested with ancient people who have been serving for fucking ever. And I mean, check out the Democrat senator and House and see how long they've been. Yeah, we know. They've been in power for a long time, and so have all the Republicans. And the whole wanting younger people in office is one of many reasons why I'm voting for Harris, because Trump, at the end of his term, will be older than Biden is now. Trump will be 82 years old. Yeah, I agree. We need term limits on every single office. Representative, senator, obviously president, Supreme Court justice, all of them. Every single one needs term limits. And even better, we need to make it to where, like, if you serve as president, you can't go on to serve in the House. Or if you serve in the House, you can't go on to serve in the Senate. Or if you serve in the Senate, you can't go on and serve in the House afterwards. People need to have a cap on how long they can stay in government. And then also make the retirement age be the mandatory retirement age for the government. I mean, we already have the mandatory retirement age in the military. Why wouldn't we have it in the hand of the government that is running the military? If the retirement age that says you're too old to work is 65, then you should be, if you're over 65, you should be too old to stay in office. Like Kamala Harris says, we need a new generation of leadership. And Trump, at the end of his term, is going to be 82. Harris, at the end of her term, would be 64. Yeah, I don't agree with Trump's foreign policy this time, because he's going to suck us right out of NATO, and he's going to... He literally said, he told Russia, hey, you can do whatever the hell you want with Ukraine and Europe. He's going to run it like a protection racket. Trump's foreign policy is going to absolutely destroy the entirety of the West. And then, of course, tariffs, which some people consider to be a part of foreign policy. That's going to be a 20% sales tax on everything that you buy. Minimum. Yeah, that's right, Eddie. They just want power. Yeah, I'm not going to be too hopeful about any party pushing forward term limits until, we get a new generation of leadership going on. When the boomers get ousted from government, and probably same with Gen X. We probably won't see term limits until millennials become the governing class. Yeah, Trump had a shitty foreign policy, and it's only going to get worse. Alright, see you later, Green. Yeah, tariffs don't work. They literally do not work. Because most industry... Well, for one, we have to face the original concept. Tariffs bring back jobs. They don't bring back jobs. Tariffs, all they do is tax the American people. And when the only way to make it to where tariffs would work and where corporations would just bring back jobs, the tariffs would have to be high enough to the point where it would be more expensive to import than to make it at home, which is not possible because Americans make more money than the Chinese do. If we were to make, say, toasters in America, we wouldn't be getting them for as cheap anymore because the corporations would raise the prices on the toasters because you have to pay the workers more. So the whole idea of bringing back jobs to America doesn't really work in the first place. And then the whole idea that tariffs will bring back jobs is completely baseless. because corporations will just foot the bill. They have no reason not to. Unless you are tariffing every single product, like 200%, they're not going to do it. Yeah, tariffs don't work. They literally don't work. There's a reason why every single economist in the country is saying that Trump's tariff plan would kill the economy. And that's just facts. And facts don't care about your feelings. I mean, you just look at Europe, and Europe, they have a 20% sales tax. And you look at Europe, and they've been stagnant ever since the 80s. Because everything's just too damn expensive. The whole idea of buying things is just expensive, and then energy is so expensive over there. When you adjust their GDPs for inflation, their economies haven't grown in the past 30, 40 years. Yeah, see, as a European, I'm scared that what would happen if the U.S. stopped supporting Ukraine and NATO. A troubled Europe's problems will spill over to the USA. Russia will not come overseas. It's 2 miles from Alaska. Yeah, the whole idea, Russia is always on America's doorstep. And for two, without the United States, it's like, you can't say, oh, Europe's not our problem. That's across the Atlantic. That's not our problem. What happens when Russia steamrolls through the entirety of Europe? What happens when Germany and France become Russian puppet states? What happens when the United Kingdom becomes a puppet state? Huh? Do you think, will it be our problem then? Will it? I think it will be our problem then. Like, I believe in defending Europe for morality's sake, but even if you don't believe in the morality of defending Europe to the fucking death, the whole idea of, oh, it's not America's problem is completely stupid. So thanks for bringing that point up, Eddie, because it's completely correct. And I mean, in a single fight, US could beat Russia easily. But we don't need NATO just for Russia. We need NATO to face off against China. In a solo, the US would lose against China. Yeah, I know how much Russia lost in World War II. But yeah, like, the US has like $2.5 trillion in manufacturing GDP. China has about $6 trillion. Or so. Well, no, I think the US has $3 trillion, Europe has $3 trillion, China has $6 trillion. The only way you win a war is through overcoming that barrier. You need to have more manufacturing capacity than your enemy. Without NATO, the United States is dead. Without NATO, the United States loses to China in any long war. So even if you don't believe in combating Russia, you sure as hell better believe in combating China. If we abandon Europe, it will become our problem. And pretty much the only thing standing between us and just getting completely invaded will be nuclear war. And nuclear war will just be an extinction. So, I mean, if we abandon Europe, the choices become extinction or becoming a Chinese puppet state. Those are the two options if you abandon Europe. The other option is we don't abandon NATO, and we don't abandon Europe, and we actually honor our alliances and defend democracy abroad. This isn't a Vietnam situation. We're not sending troops over. We're not giving out weapons for free. We're selling them to Ukraine. The whole idea of not supporting Ukraine is just completely delusional. The whole idea of not supporting Europe is completely delusional. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Eddie, because that is completely right. And you have every reason to worry, and I worry on your behalf too. Just know that when I'm going to the ballot box tomorrow and voting for Kamala Harris, I will be thinking about Europe. I will be thinking about the safety and security of a free Europe. And many other people will be too. Millions of people will be thinking about that. not all Americans don't give a shit. So yeah, I think most people are starting to empty out now, so I'm probably going to start wrapping this up. Let's set a timer for like 5 minutes. If things pick up again, then I'll keep it going. Otherwise, it'll be it. It'll be the end. And tomorrow will be election day, and the fate of the free world will be decided. For anyone still sticking around who hasn't heard, my official prediction is that, let's see here. Harris has a 76.5 to 78.6% chance of winning the Electoral College, 78.9% to 100% chance of winning the popular vote. Neither option will be a landslide. For most likely outcome, will be winning with 325 electoral votes, sweeping all the swing states, and winning Iowa. For determining who will win the election itself, I would recommend looking to Pennsylvania on election night. For determining whether or not Harris will have an electoral blowout, I will recommend watching Iowa on election night. That means that my ultimate prediction is that Harris will win the presidential election of 2024 for the United States of America. Thank you for considering us over here, says Eddie. My country, Sweden, joined NATO so that way we could have allies. There's a strong support for the transatlantic cooperation. We're strong together. I hope it continues. I agree. Though we may have our differences in politics, religion, culture, friendship between all peoples is what leads to prosperity. We have more in common than what we have in differences. And protecting ourselves, democracies, as different as they are from each other, is in all of our best interests. Defending ourselves from totalitarian regimes like Russia, China, Iran, North Korea. It'll all serve us good in the long run, and friendship between all peoples leads to prosperity. So thank you all so much for tuning into this stream. Hope you enjoyed it. I don't really care whether you agree or not, because that's not why I'm here. I'm just positing my prediction, and regardless of how this turns out, I will wish you all a good night.